I'm Pat Doris. Welcome to The Story and welcome to Friday. What a beautiful day out there today. A great day to enjoy the great outdoors. And tonight we're going to start with a story concerning the outdoors, the environment, specifically climate anxiety. What's that mean anyway? And are people making big life decisions because of it? That, my friends, is our big story. Earlier this year, we brought you a story about climate anxiety and asked you to fill out an online survey to tell us how you feel about our warming planet. Is it something that you worry about often, or does it affect your daily life? Maybe not, maybe so. What about big decisions like having children? And does the future of our climate give you pause? Well, the results are in from our survey. Environmental reporter Cale Williams joins us with some analysis as well as a reaction from a local expert on what it all means.
So before we get into your responses, a couple items of housekeeping. We want to be clear, this was not a scientific poll. We put this out for any of our viewers to tell us how climate change is affecting their mental health and how they make important decisions in their lives. We got more than 70 responses, with about 55% of respondents being over the age of 45. Roughly 60% identified as female and about 83% were white, which is pretty close to the statewide average. But even though this wasn't a representative sample of Oregon's population, I still think these results are valuable. So first, we wanted to establish a bit of a baseline. So we asked you, how important is the issue of global warming to you personally? 62.5% of you said that it was extremely important. And you know, that's not that surprising given the last few years of wildfires and heat waves. The other end of the spectrum, 2.7% of you said that it was not at all important. You know, that's your prerogative. But we wanted to know just how important, how worried these types of things made you. So we asked, how worried are you about global warming? 55.6% said they were extremely worried. Another 29.2% said they were very worried. Altogether, that's about 86% who are either extremely or very worried, almost 9 in 10 people. And they have good reason to be. Despite all that Oregon has done, incentives for electric vehicles, rebates for heat pumps, caps on carbon dioxide emissions, our state is still well behind where we need to be to avoid the worst impacts of climate change. A recent report from the Oregon Global Warming Commission found that in 2021, the state was nearly 20% off the goal set for the year before. And that brings us to the next question in our survey. We asked, over the last 2 weeks, how often have you been bothered by feeling down, depressed, or hopeless because of global warming? Almost 43% of you said not at all. However, another 40% said this kind of mental strain was happening several days out of every 2 weeks. Another 11% said it was happening more than half the time. About 7% said they felt like this nearly every day. And these feelings are having profound impacts on people's behavior. We asked, if this applies to your life, does climate change affect your decision to have children? Now, this question wasn't quite as relevant to some of our older respondents, but the results are still informative. 36% said no, but another third of the group said that changes in our climate have made them think twice about one of the most important decisions a person can make. So we wanted to hear more from these people in their own words, and they told us. One person said, I chose not to have kids partly because what world would be left for them? I couldn't in good conscience create life in this environment. Another person told us, the future will still need people in it, working to better humanity. I'm just remorseful of the struggle and watching things fall apart while we raise our daughter. Let's hear one more. My spouse and I did talk about climate change when we discussed whether or not we wanted to have kids. Ultimately, we decided that climate change isn't enough to deter us from having children, and now we have 2. So I reached out to Yanni Ma. She's an environmental communications expert at Oregon State to help me make sense of some of these answers. She said some of these responses were striking.
I'm a little bit surprised that I see the more people concerned or worried about climate change, it actually impacts how they will think about whether or not they are going to have a child in the future. Because if they think, or if they feel hopeless, they think there is no future, they are less likely to have a child in the future.
And there was one question that really got at the heart of why the future seems so daunting. How much do you think global warming will harm future generations of people? 86.1% of you said a great deal. That's almost 9 in 10 people who think that climate change will harm future generations, our kids and grandkids, a great deal. So the big takeaway from all this, climate change is a significant source of stress for a whole range of people. And this would be troubling in any state, but it's particularly bad in Oregon. We're consistently ranked as one of the worst states for mental health, both in prevalence of mental illness and access to care. But that doesn't mean there's nothing that can be done. Ma did some correlation analysis on these answers about where people get information about the environment. She found people were far more likely to care about climate change when they hear about it from friends and family, rather than from people like me on television.
So we do suggest if you and your friends or family members can talk more about climate change, it may impact other people's opinion on it. And further, maybe more people would be more likely to engage in this issue.
Ma said getting involved in advocacy can provide some relief. And another easy strategy to help combat climate anxiety is to get out into nature. After all, what better way to ease your anxiety about the state of the environment than to get out and experience the beauty of it? There are also mental health resources, websites, and 24-hour hotlines available to anyone who needs them. We've got a full rundown of those resources up right now on KGW.com.
Thanks, Cale. What great information. Hey, if you missed out on our survey earlier this year, we'd still love to hear from you right now, in fact. Do you think you have climate anxiety? Why or why not? Send us an email, will you? The address is thestory@kgw.com or call and leave a voicemail. The number is 503-226-5090.